for the Joan Quinn Profiles. As an editor for Andy Warhol's Interview, the Los Angeles Herald-Examiner, LA Style, and Detour magazines, Joan covered the social set, the Hollywood hotshots, the international art scene, the mysteries of food, the excitement of travel, and the fabulous world of fashion. Joan continues to find creative people on the cutting edge who make things happen. Here's Joan Agajanian Quinn.
Hi, I'm Joan Quinn, and welcome to the Joan Quinn Profiles. Waiting to be profiled is art curator Virginia Shore and artist Dennis Dutzi. You can see his work on the set today. Virginia Shore was born and raised in Wisconsin. She majored in political science at the University of Dayton in Ohio, earned her master's degree in art at George Washington University, and she's currently senior curator of the Art and Embassy program in Washington, D.C. Hi, Virginia.
Hi.
What is the Art and Embassy program?
Well, the Art and Embassies program was created in 1964 under the Kennedy administration, and basically at that time, people wanted to give American artists exposure overseas, and the Museum of Modern Art in New York and the Woodward Foundation had been doing it for 10 years, but they were using the State Department and their property to exhibit artists' work. So when the State Department got involved in '64, they basically took the program over.
Did those people still help with the program? Did they contribute money?
Occasionally, the Museum of Modern Art has lent works, and the Woodward Foundation has lent or has given money and money to do catalogs. So.
How did you ever get interested in Art and Embassies program? How would you get into something like that?
It was a fluke. I mean, a lot of people haven't heard about the program. It's getting more and more publicity these days because we're showing artwork now in all the embassies around the world. And originally it was just the Western European Post, but now it's approximately 180 embassies, give or take a few. And so we're working with large numbers of ambassadors, and it's a continuous process that turns over every 3 years, basically.
Well, how do you keep track? I mean, you're the senior curator. How many people on the staff?
8 people. There are 3 curators, our director, Rosalind Swig, 3 curators, 1 registrar right now, but we hope to have 2 soon, and 3 basically administrative people.
So the ambassadors obviously change with the administration.
Right.
So when a new ambassador comes in, do you put new art in the embassy?
Right. Basically what we do is we work directly with the ambassadors, and the career ambassadors change. Every 3 years the process, they revolve, and so they're either sent out to another post or they come back and somebody else goes out to the post. But they come and work, they come and meet with us. Sometimes it's numerous times. Sometimes they know exactly what they're interested in, and sometimes not. So the curators are responsible for educating and expanding, their knowledge of art, of American art. It's all American art that we're working with.
The thing that's so probably time crunch is that they all go out at the same time and all come in at the same time?
Well, typically not. I mean, that usually happens as it is now with a new administration, although it's just his second term, but there are numerous political ambassadors that are now turning over because they were appointed in the beginning of Clinton's last administration, and the career ambassadors are also turning over. So it's a cyclical thing, but right now there are numerous, more than we've seen in years.
One thing that's happened, I think, is we're opening new embassies.
Right.
Where are some of the new embassies?
Well, we have Turkmenistan, and the capital is Ashgabat, and Uzbekistan, and I mean, there are about 10 new embassies in total, and that's just some of the CIS countries, but we have other embassies opening, like Hanoi is another embassy it's our first embassy there since before the war, and Pete Peterson is our ambassador there, and I've been working with him, and
that's pretty exciting.
Very exciting.
And you mentioned Jerusalem.
Yes, and Jerusalem is not yet a full-fledged embassy, but we will be having somebody in Jerusalem who's a different representative than the ambassador in Tel Aviv, and so I will be working with him, just as we have a consulate general in Hong Kong who's separate from the ambassador in Beijing. They both maintain,
they both have a house,
exactly,
so to speak?
Exactly. We have a couple exceptions, but for the most part it's the American ambassadors, but we have a couple of consulate generals that we also work with.
So do you just do it in the embassy, or do you do it in their living quarters? Do you put art in their living quarters as well?
It is actually just in the living quarters. It's in the quote-unquote representational rooms of the ambassador's residence. So it's where the ambassadors are doing all the formal entertaining. The average count is about 2,000 people every 2 weeks that are coming through these residences, because they are doing the lunches and the dinners and receptions there, and everything is identified so that the ambassadors and their guests know where these pieces are loaned, because we wouldn't exist without the generosity of our lenders. So everyone is given credit, and the artists are given credit, and the lenders are given credit.
Well, do you go to some of these events? How does the art get put up?
If required, a courier will accompany the collection and oversee the installation, as well as the deinstallation when the collection comes back, because on occasion we're sending works to countries that perhaps aren't used to handling pieces that are up close to $1 million, and we want to make sure that everything is taken care of, and we insure everything and take care of it and want to make sure that it's safe. Yeah.
Now we'll get into the selection of it. What do you do on a day-to-day basis in your office?
When it's slow and we're not, we don't have numerous ambassadors coming through, much of my day is spent looking at slides or spent traveling and looking and encouraging new people to lend. I mean, we're always looking for new sources and trying to find new artists, and working with artists, that have been around and been well known for years.
That's how you do it. Do you do it all by slides, or do you actually see something on a slide and go out to see what the work is?
Both. I mean, we do work occasionally by slides if we can't, if it's an artist in Alaska who wants to loan and it's not feasible to go and look at the work directly, then we work with slides. But we're traveling often domestically to go and look at artists' work. And
what happens, what does the ambassador tell you who's coming in? Say Hanoi, so to speak. Because we know he's there and it's a new embassy.
Right. He knows, I look at the space and get a sense of the space, and since this is a new residence, you need to know walls, because if there are big walls, we can accommodate large paintings, and that's what we hope to do. In Hanoi, right now is under construction. It's being refurbished. So I am working with several artists that have agreed to lend. Eric Fischel is one, and I met with Janice Provisor and Brad Davis in Hong Kong. Their studios are there, and they're going to be working with me on that collection. So it's an ongoing process.
That's a good question too. Once you set the collection and they're there for 3 years, do they ever come to you and say, I can't live with this painting, can we change it, can we put something else in?
Occasionally. They have to come up with the money.
Oh, is that what happens?
Yeah. For shipping. I mean, if we're going to ship a collection there, we have limited funds to ship collections, and so if a change occurs or they request a change, the funding has to be behind what they're requesting.
Would the ambassador have favorite artists? Have you come across ambassadors who have?
Yes, I have. I've worked with some ambassadors that have definite favorites, and one collection in particular that was of interest to work with the ambassador and his wife, who are in Ghana, and they wanted to do a collection of all women artists, and they also wanted to make a strong point about the birds in Accra and in Ghana, because they're not treated very well. So we did numerous works of birds in ideal situations, and so it was not a strong point, but a subtle one that they were trying to make.
It shows a real sensitivity to the ambassador going into his environs. Then you are challenged by finding artists, American artists, who can live up to what they're looking for.
Right. Right.
So is that where the research starts?
Exactly. And we're looking for, all kinds of American artwork. I mean, as long American citizens, we're working with, people who've immigrated from different parts of the world. Chinese American.
Citizens.
Yes, citizenship is required.
Now, one thing, I know you're not only interested in paintings.
Right. We also work with textiles and glass, sculpture. It's across the board.
Large, small?
Large, small, all the above.
Photographs?
Photographs, photography is something else that we work with. We really want to try and incorporate artists from every area. So
now, one thing, in the case of a death of an ambassador, say Ambassador Harriman was actually ready to come back, but she succumbed before she left the embassy. What do you do in the case of that? Do you move it out right away?
Well, we contact all of the lenders, and numerous pieces that were in her collection were actually her paintings, but there were also many pieces from the National Gallery and the museum in Virginia, and other museums the National Museum of American Art had loaned, and they basically work with us in determining when they're going to be coming back, because they're so high value. Someone would have to be there, of course, to bring them back, to deinstall the collection. So.
And do they all have catalog? Is there a catalog for each collection?
Yeah, well, now we have a source. It's an auxiliary group called the Friends of Art and Preservation of Embassies, and they are now giving us money to do catalogs. So we have about 20 embassies a year are given $3,000 to do a catalog, and we assist ambassadors in getting funding to often, but we encourage that more and more they're doing catalogs on the collections, because it's a great way to thank the lenders, and it's a great thing to give people when they come in the residence and view the pieces and take with them.
I think that's really important, is for people to take that away, because you don't just have Americans coming to the embassies, you have everyone from that different countries converging on the embassies. How is the most expensive piece? Is there a limit of how much you can?
There's a limit in terms of our insurance. Our insurance is $5 million on every collection.
Wow! And then for the whole collection?
For the whole collection, but if it goes over that limit, which it has, it occasionally happens, then we get riders on the.
But you can take a $2 million painting if you could get it?
Well, and speaking of Pamela Harriman's collection, there were numerous pieces that were well over the $1 million or the $5 million mark. So
is that right?
Yeah. So we have done, and that has happened in the past. Not all the time, but sometimes.
Now, probably the easiest thing for you is if an ambassador comes in and says, I love the way this residence looks. Can we keep everything? Does it work that way?
That has happened. Ambassadors have requested to retain works that previous ambassadors have had at that post, but we discourage it because...
Oh, you do?
People are generously lending these works for 3 years, and to ask them to lend for another 3 years is too much. So it hasn't happened often unless the lender's willing to do it, but we don't encourage it.
Well, I've traveled a lot around the world, and I love going to the embassies. It's always a sense of feeling at home, and I think this program is absolutely fabulous. You love going into some place and being able to recognize people from America in the American embassy at the residence, and it gives you really a feeling of being so proud of what we have.
It's a great program.
So long live your program.
Thank you,
Virginia
Joan.
Shore, thank you for coming.
Thank you.
We'll see you again. Thanks for being in LA.
Thank you.
We'll be right back with artist Dennis Dutzi, who has painted the painting on the set. Hi, I'm Joan Quinn, and we're back with artist Dennis Dutzi. Of course, you can see how I look. Do I look like my portrait here? Dennis Dutzi, who was born and raised in Long Island, New York, came to Los Angeles with his family, where he lived and went to school. He graduated from Cal State Long Beach, and he went to El Camino College. When you came to California, Dennis, did you find a difference between New York and California?
Well, I was immediately impressed by the, the light and the whole sense of the atmosphere of California, because New Yorkers, live in an environment which is pretty much, dealing with the cold weather all the time and the weather changing constantly. And I just love the whole sense of the warmth here, and the fact everything is cleaner, and the light and the shadows, that all has a big part and play in my work.
Were you aware of that at the time? Did you think your work was going to be like this when you were in art school?
It was inside of me what I really wanted to do. It's just that it just took time to nurture and finally, make it to the surface.
Well, tell me, who was on the faculty in school when you were there? Who did you study with?
And a strong influence would be Tom Krumpeck, who worked in a non-objective way with color. He basically dealt with color on one surface and playing off each other. Now I'm taking that and putting it more in a three-dimensional way with my images.
Who else was on the faculty?
DJ Hall, who's a Los Angeles-based artist, who's quite well known.
She does people too.
She does people too. They're very static and very hyper-real.
That's how you would describe. I mean, it's realist painting, right? This is realism.
Right.
And who else was there?
There was a New York-based artist by the name of Mae Stevens, who worked in the figurative motive as well. But she wasn't. Her color sense wasn't as strong as DJ's. DJ more, pushed me over to the edge of where I really want to go with my work.
Now, does the professor really work with you, stand at the canvas, tell you what you should do, or do you come to them with ideas?
Art school's supposed to be, a place where you're really supposed to take, what you're learning and applying it towards something. And for me, like I mentioned, I wanted to take what I've known already and nurture it more and develop it more.
So we talked about the professors or the faculty teaching you things. Were there any other great artists that you looked to that you thought you wanted to paint?
I would say David Hockney. I love David Hockney's work. I like the sense of California light and the play of all that.
And David's painting sunflowers now. We have sunflowers.
Right, exactly.
Homage to David Hockney.
Right.
But he does have that feel of light. That's why he likes California so much.
And there's a lot of energy in that, and that to me is really important as an artist, to project that with my work.
Well, do you call your work traditional portraiture?
I would say it's a step above that, where I'm more involved with the commercialism of the media, the pop image.
Maybe that would show up.
That was from my one-man show at Gallery Galgano in Los Angeles.
And so, talk about a pop image. I mean, is this as pop imagey as you can get?
Yes, very much. It has that very hyper-real, state. And
did you set it up?
Actually, it was a combination of setting up the person with the image, and I took several photographs, came up with my own composition, which formed my own genre that I wanted to work from, and that's how it all came about. It's important for me, as well as taking the photograph, which is a process, to draw, because drawing is a tool that is important for me.
So how do you choose the subject? Are they all commissions, or do you walk around the streets, or how do you find somebody to paint?
It's a combination. I do a lot of driving, so when I see images and people, whatever clicks in my mind, that's what I'm going to use.
Do they have to be real? I mean, if it's on a billboard, will you go and photograph it and use that?
Yes, I would, because it almost becomes kind of like a landscape in its own way.
So let's talk about the procedure. I know what the procedure is because we did this painting of me.
Right.
I came in with these dark glasses from Emmanuel Kahn, who's a great friend of ours in Paris. And then I also wore these dark glasses. I'm not a dark glassing person, but you wanted that.
Well, for me, the reason for that is I'd like to cover the eyes of the individual. Although with yours it's kind of unique, I am having your eyes showing through a tiny bit. But I wanted the image, in other words, to look, or the spectator to look at the surface of the image and the way the light plays off on each other with the shapes and the shadows. And that, to me, makes it very contemporary. It takes it a step further compared to traditional portraiture.
But then you came over to the house.
Correct.
Tell us what you would do with a person.
Well, I came over to your home. I wanted to get into a relaxed state. I wanted to take a series of photographs of you talking so I could really just get you as you are. I didn't want you to, get dressed up in a certain way, because it wasn't an idea of just making a perfect photograph. It was trying to just capture how you are every day.
And do you tell your people what to wear?
No, I let the individual choose what they want that, gives them what they are as an individual.
Well, one thing, you made 100 photographs.
Right. And
And this isn't one photograph.
No, it is not. It's like several, which I made into a drawing, and then there it is.
So once you take the photographs, then what do you do?
I'll look at all the images on the wall, and then I'll decide which images I want to draw from, and then I make my sketch, and then make a detailed sketch, and then I work from that.
So you put them all, you combine them?
Combine them all together. And the sense of color is very much of, from myself. It isn't from, a photograph, which gives it that genre, that feeling.
The one thing, when I saw this, I felt like I looked so studious, even though it's very up and it's very exciting. There was this kind of studious feeling about it, which I didn't see in
Well, that was
me.
the impression I got from you, because you're just so knowledgeable about art and, about what's going on in the art world, on the cutting edge.
So I thought, oh, do I really look like this? That's the other thing. How do people react to being painted?
It's kind of interesting. It's a shock value for some people, because they don't expect what it would turn out. Because they see other work and they get fascinated by it, but when they see themselves, it's like it just blows their mind.
It's totally different.
Totally different. It's like looking at a billboard.
And of course, it's like looking at something from your eyes, not from our eyes.
That's right. That's right.
And to have you create something that is your own person,
And
out of us,
Right.
out of your subject.
Right.
One of the things, you haven't been out of school for very long, and you already have a gallery representing you. How does a young artist find a gallery?
Well, first they should really look at themselves and what they really want with their art. If they have a strong portfolio and a good body of work, they should start looking for the gallery that really handles their type of work.
How would they find that?
By going to a lot of openings and meeting the right people and talking to them and getting the input about where to go with their work.
You're at the Galgano Gallery. Do you feel that everything in there has the same kind of sensibility? Does David Galgano look for a certain type of artist?
Well, first of all, he has a very good eye, and I think that he's dealing with a lot of representational art because that's his forte. He loves realism. So
because I know him from the Andy Warhol days.
Right,
so
right.
I know that this is his genre, but does he have different types of artists? Can a sculptor come to him and say, I want to show in your gallery because I love your painters?
I believe if they would like, they could. I mean, it's up to him and how he feels, and if it grabs his eye, of course he's going to be interested. So.
And then what kind of rapport do you have to have with your gallery dealer?
Be very honest. That's the key thing. It's simple as that. When you're honest, things will happen for you in the long run.
Have you thought of going abroad to study?
Possibly. I have a gallery in Germany representing me right now, in Aachen, and I'm very excited about that. So.
And as far as keeping up with the art world and what's going on, you say that you have to go to openings. What else should a young artist do in order to find a life in the art world?
I actually do a lot of reading. I think it's very important, and that really will help you express yourself and what you really want to, say about your work. I mean, that's important.
But other things? What about a dialogue? What about hanging out with other artists?
That's actually very important to an extent, but I think it's just more important just to, you know, do a lot of reading and knowing what's going on overall, because you really can't see everything. And, you know, magazines are an important way of,
I think we talked about this before, about painting for yourself. Get in the studio and just keep painting and painting and painting, and don't worry about if you have a gallery or if anyone's going to come to see you. The more you paint and the more you're involved in your work, the more people are going to feel your involvement and really believe in it.
And that's very true, Joan. The energy will, you know, draw people to you. It's important not to get caught up in a lot of the trends.
That's what, yeah. Now, we don't have much time left, but what I wanted to ask you is, are there people, I'm saying are there people, because I know there's more than one person, that you would like to photograph and paint?
David Hockney would be my next subject. I would love to paint him.
And who else? Tell us who else.
Who else would be an important person? Actually, I'm photographing Mary Murphy this Saturday, a journalist for CBS. This would be very interesting. So
you would like to do women or men?
It's a combination of both. I'm not, you know, centering myself on one particular, you know.
And just before we leave, one other thing. How about the color of the skin, the color of the person? Does that make a difference to you?
Yes, because for me, I think it was very much the influence first coming to California and the billboards, seeing all the billboards on Sunset Boulevard and how they have this real surreal quality to them. That really made a big difference for me.
Well, I'm going to put my glasses back on, and I'm going to thank Dennis Dutzi for being with us today. And I hope you like the portrait that he did as much as we do over at my house. And thank you for watching the Joan Quinn Profiles. Write to 777 Figueroa, 40th floor, Los Angeles. Thanks for writing. We'll see you next time on the Joan Quinn Profiles.